Okay, the media we're going to be working with today is a perfect environment for bacteria and fungal cells to grow. And if bacteria and fungal cells get into this nutrient-rich media, they will overgrow the delicate cell culture we're trying to grow. And you also always want to be able to make sure that what you're growing is what you're actually trying to grow, so there's no confusion with results or problems in the end. So it's very important that we work aseptically. When we are doing our work today, we're doing benchtop sterile work, meaning that the environment that we're working in is not sterile, but we're trying to keep our work as sterile as possible so that we don't introduce any bacteria from the air. When we are doing this, we try to keep our media and containers closed as much as possible. So we never open our dishes and leave them open to the air. We only open them when we need them, and then we close them right away. When you do open your containers, you want to make sure that you use the lid as a shield to prevent any directional flow of air from your mouth. So it protects your work. So you hold it like this, and you can work behind the shield that you created. Whenever you're working, you always try to limit the amount of talking, sneezing, coughing, because they can send cells into the air and create gusts that would push cells into your work. Before you start, you always want to know what you're doing so you can work quickly to minimize the amount of exposure of your work to the air. Another thing we do when we work in a benchtop sterile environment is we work near a heat source. So today we're going to be working with an alcohol flame. What this does when you work near a heat source is it causes the air around the heat source to rise, and these rising air currents carry the air away from your work. So it makes it much less likely that bacteria or particles in the air will go downwards into your workspace if the air currents are rising. In no way does it zap the bacteria out of the air or kill the bacteria around the flame. It is not creating a sterile zone, it's just causing the currents to rise. So before we light the flame, there's a few safety considerations. You always want to make sure that you take any paper and flammable materials and move them away from the flame. You want to make sure that your alcohol bath is not too close to the flame. You also need to make sure that you have no long sleeves or bulky clothes that could catch on the flame or knock something over when you're working. Also, long hair needs to be pulled back into a ponytail so it's behind your shoulders. Only light the flame when you are ready to start. So you set up the work area with everything you need close by. You know what you're going to do, and then you may light the flame. You never light the flame and then just walk away to get your materials. It needs to be attended all the time. It is not mood lighting. So when you light the flame, you're going to set your work up so that your alcohol bath is sitting over to the side and the lid is close by and easy for you to grab, so you know where it is at all times. So today we're going to be working with forceps and, scalpel and forceps. When you are working with this, what you do is you're going to dip it into the alcohol bath. You're going to tap it off so that you don't have any extra ethanol. So you don't want any dripping ethanol or extra ethanol, because if you move quickly, you might flick the ethanol across the counter. So you're always just going to tap it. The next thing you're going to do once you get the extra off is you're going to pass it into the flame and out again. And then you just wait carefully while the alcohol burns off on the tool you're using. So when you are doing this in practice, you only need to do it one time, and the tool is sterile. I'm going to do it several times while I discuss the different parts of the technique, but in reality you would only do it one time. So notice that when I dip them and top them off, then I pass it in the flame, I only leave it in long enough to make sure that it is lit, and then I take it out. There is no need to hold it in the flame or to wave it back and forth in the flame or move it around. You should always only put it in the amount of time, and you never hold it there. Also, when you are doing this, while the flame is burning off the tool, you always hold your tool horizontally to the tabletop. You never hold your tool like this, because the burning ethanol could drip down onto your hand, or if you hold it like this, the burning ethanol could drip onto the table. So you always hold it in a horizontal position. So once again, dip, tap it off, pass it into the flame and then out again, hold it horizontally, while the alcohol burns off. One last thing is you'll notice that as the ethanol is burning, it's quite pale in color, and you might not actually see it on your tool. What this can do is, if you're not paying attention, if you don't realize your tool's on fire, you can accidentally light your bath on fire, in which case you just carefully put the lid on top right away. Screaming about it won't put out the fire, but the lid will put out the fire right away. It's very important that you're paying attention so that this never happens, and you always know if your tool's on fire. Alright, when you're done, you're going to use your sterile tool, and you notice that you have to pay attention at all times. Once this tool is sterile, if you touch it to the table or accidentally touch it to something like your arm, it's no longer sterile, so you would have to sterilize it again. Once you're done using it, so if I were to put some tissue into my plate, as soon as I'm done using it, I always put it right back into the ethanol. You never put the tool into the flame when it hasn't been dipped in ethanol first. Okay? The exact same procedure can be done with the scalpel. You can dip it, pass it into the flame, hold it horizontally, wait till it burns off, then use it. Okay? If you're ever worried that your tool is too hot, you can touch it to the agar away from where you need to work to make sure that it's cooled off, and then touch the agar where you need to be. When you're all finished, make sure you put the lid on your alcohol bath and blow out your flame and put the cap back on.